Yes, you've made it. Listen, this is a free knife sharpening course from me to you. Now, listen, I'm so glad you signed up for this. I've got a lot of special things coming down the pipeline. Check your email, make sure it's legit. This is a free course. I truly believe that a knife sharpening course should be free. I don't feel comfortable charging for this. So, when I was a young chef growing up, there was so much different information on knife sharpening, and nobody would ever just show me how to sharpen a knife. I had to do all the research and everything. Now, nowadays it's a little bit different, but here's the thing. This knife sharpening course is gonna be from a chef to you, not from a knife expert, not from a knife sharpener, not from a bladesmith. I think a lot of things that happen is people get intimidated with knife sharpening, right? They don't wanna mess up their knives, or they don't feel confident, or it's just, it's hard to take the first step in sharpening your own knife. Now, here's the thing. I can't tell you one thing, I'm not a professional knife maker and I'm not a knife geek anymore. I used to be really obsessed with knives and knife sharpening, but then as you start to grow in your career, what ends up happening is other things take precedence, right? So as I became an executive level chef, my knife got put down and it was more of delegating and teaching. So with that being said, I think what's really important is if you're a young culinarian or if you're an avid home cook, it's very important to have a sharp knife. A lot of people ask me, what type of knife should I get? Should I spend this much money on a knife? And you know what my answer is, and this will always be my answer, is do you know how to sharpen? Because if you don't know how to sharpen, then what you need to do is you need to buy a cheaper knife that will still give you the results you need, but needs to be maintained, and it's a good knife to practice on. And that is why I suggest the Victorinox. I'll put it right here. Or a Mercer, or something that is less than $40 that you can practice sharpening on. Because when you go spend $300 to $400 on a good Japanese style knife or a German knife, at some point you're gonna need to sharpen it. And if you don't know how to sharpen it, then you're up shit's creek without a paddle, excuse my language. But I primarily use Japanese knives, but I'm not opposed to German knives or any other type of steel, but my knives primarily are Japanese. This is just the knife that works for me, Western style Japanese. There's plenty of ways and different ways to sharpen a knife. I'm gonna show you the way that has worked for me for the last 20 years, okay? And what I stand by. Now, do I think that everybody should sharpen like I do on a Japanese whetstone with water? No. You do whatever works for you. Take in consideration, there's 100 ways you can sharpen your knife. One of them is the electric sharpener by Chef's Choice. Listen, I just bought it a month and a half ago and I was sharpening knives at work with it. And for me, it's not a good fit. But I'm not gonna say it's not a good fit for the avid home cook or the mom of 4 children that doesn't have time to sharpen her knives with a whetstone, or if you have inexpensive knives. The thing for me is you can't control the angle too much and it just takes too much metal off. So, but it's a good option for somebody that's at home or is a cook in a restaurant or a butcher. This could be a good option for you. Another option is the oil stone, right? And the oil stone it's a great way to sharpen, but for me, it takes too much metal off of the knife for me. I use Japanese knives, so I prefer the Japanese whetstone. Next, there's also so many really good knife services out there that will sharpen your knives for you. So here's a good example. Working in a restaurant kitchen as a chef, my sous chefs used to send their knives out to get sharpened. And you know why? It's because they were working 60, 80 hours a week, okay? And now I wouldn't do that, but they would send it out to get sharpened and I would cover the bill. And this worked for them. They didn't have time to keep up with their knives and sharpen every time after service. When you're a line cook, I think it's best to take care of and manage your own knife. And nothing is worse than having a dull knife. So whether you're a new chef, home cook, culinarian, we're gonna go over that right now. Just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. So let's jump right in. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch to overhead so you can actually see this whole process, and I'm gonna talk while I sharpen. Let's go. Okay, so to start, listen, I got a lot of cool knife sharpening things, but what I wanna do is I wanna keep this bare minimum so that way you can download exactly what I'm saying. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna need is a whetstone, okay? Now, what I highly suggest is getting the best bang for your buck. There are plenty of stones out there, and there are people that live and die by natural Japanese stones, and I totally get it. But here's the thing. In my experience, I am a firm believer. I had natural Japanese stones. One of my cooks dropped one. I was like, oh, it was heartbreaking. So in all honesty, to make a long story short, what I do is I invest in synthetic stones, and I have a bunch of them, right? Because I realized for what I'm looking for, I can get pretty much the same result give or take, and it works for me, and these are very inexpensive. Literally this stone set online, I got the whole thing. The stone fixer, this, you know, all this for less than $40, right? So for me, it's worth it. I have one here at home, I have one at work, okay? Now, just to give you an example, I think it's really important to at least have the stone fixer, all right, and 2 double-sided stones. You can get away with just one, okay? But I highly recommend get the double-sided, okay? So this is a polishing stone, this is a sharpening stone. Now, all you have to know is coarse, medium, fine, okay? So I'm not gonna get into the nitty gritty of it, but this 400 is coarse, 1000 is medium, and then anything above 3000 is polish, okay? Or fine is what I like to call. So obviously the higher the number, the higher the grit, the softer the stone. Now, when it comes to stone maintenance, I think what's really important is some people that are using their stone very frequently, they leave them in water. In my experience, I really don't like to do that because you know, I just notice over time they get a little bit funky, and you know, you already know the drill. They get funky, and that's pretty much it. Now, what I like to do is after I'm finished using them, I just take them out. And the reason why is they only take about 15 minutes to hydrate, so to speak, or absorb the water, but you know, I leave them clean and dry when I store them. I do not need to sharpen my knives that much, but if you are a line cook and you're a prep cook and you use your knife very frequently, you're probably gonna wanna keep it stored in water and just change out the water frequently, that way you're ready to go. The next thing is the stone fixer. I think this is very important. Like, do not get the stone unless you can grab a stone fixer, or I don't recommend this, but you could also use a piece of asphalt or a sidewalk because you wanna flatten the stone. And here's the reason why. This is a stone that I bought when I was 19. Look at this difference, okay? It was this thick when I first bought it, okay? I bought this stone when I was 19, and listen, I maintained it the best I could, the best I knew how. You can see it's a little bit uneven, but we're talking about over 15 years here, and this is a synthetic stone. This is not a natural Japanese stone, but it's very near and dear to my heart because when I bought this stone when I was 19, I had no money, and it has very much a lot of sentimental value, and I think I wanna say it's a king stone, I'm not 100% sure, but obviously it's cracked, it was dropped, it was used, and I still keep it. I don't use it, but I wanted to show that. That's the reason why you want a stone fixer. You want to be able to flatten your stone and keep it easy. You know, you want to keep it maintained, right? Because if not, what's going to happen is you're going to get a big bow in the stone, and it's just no bueno. I also use a strop block for, instead of a honing steel, I use a strop block as far as polishing. So we'll get into that in a moment. Now, let's jump right into sharpening. In my experience as a chef, I think the most important thing is the angle and the pressure. That's all you have to remember, okay? Angle and pressure. A lot of people, you know, they're kind of intimidated, and what I suggest is go get a cheap knife and just go for it, right? Don't waste time. Go get a cheap knife, and then what you wanna do is you want to practice sharpening on that. Get it dull, practice sharpening. So here's the 2 most important things that I recommend when sharpening. Now, I don't like to tell people which angle to sharpen at because it's very user specific, right? Like I can still get you a sharp knife at 17-degree angle, 20-degree angle, 10-degree angle, 7-degree angle. It just depends on what you're using it for, right? So if it's a brand new knife that you just need to tighten up, I'm gonna recommend in the 15 to 20 range, but as you start to use that knife, what ends up happening is the knife, you know, as you get closer this way, it gets thicker. So you need to go at a smaller angle, which is called thinning, and we won't get into that today. This is just a basic, but you know, that's why it's very subjective. But here's a good way to know the angle, right? And I'm gonna give you 2 pro tips here. Listen, you don't have to do this, but I highly recommend if you're brand new, then if you have an iPhone, go to the Measure app, okay? And as you can see, if you click on level, you can literally put the stone and you can go to 0, okay? And actually from there, what we'll do is we'll turn it around so you can see. So we're at 0. Listen, just tip the phone over a little bit, right? And you will start to see the angle increase, right? And so here, 15 degrees, okay? Now, if you don't have an iPhone, right? And we'll get this side too. If you don't have an iPhone, all right? If you don't have an iPhone, just remember, basic math. This, compared to the stone and the knife, is 90 degrees. Half of that's gonna be 45, and then
22, okay? So basically you have a good idea.
That is a good way to know the angle, just so you have an idea. It's not the end all be all, but yes, angle and pressure is very important. Okay, next, knife companies sell a guard, right? They sell a guard that you can clip onto the knife, and then you can use the knife like that, and so you know. Now, listen, if you're brand new, totally get it. Use it a couple times, but don't let that be a crutch for you, okay? I actually, if I'm training a cook, I highly advise against it because I think it's a crutch and you're just doing yourself a disservice by not learning how to sharpen correctly. So, yes, you can use a paper clip, right? I've seen people do this number to get a proper angle, right? And I've seen people use chopsticks. But in all honesty, what you're gonna wanna do is look, feel the angle, right? But then listen, get rid of this thing because it's just gonna make you, it's just gonna give you a crutch, right? Like if your leg is not broken, you're not gonna walk on crutches. Well, that's a crutch. Now, another pro tip, and this is actually much better, I think, than doing that. What you're gonna wanna do is take a Sharpie, color where your edge is. So this is my actual edge, right? Like I do a really good job of maintaining this knife and it's very old, but it needs to be thinned. And I always, here, I'll put this up. So you see where that's at, right? So you see where that's at, right? That Sharpie mark. Well, we're gonna go one more time. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go above that line. Now we're onto the actual knife. We're not on the edge anymore. And I think this part is very important. And now you can see I've sharpened this knife quite a bit. It still does the job I need it to do. It's not extremely razor sharp. That's why I am sharpening it today. You're gonna find your angle. Okay, we already learned that. And now for the pressure, this is the most important part. The pressure, you might be thinking, how much pressure do I put on this stone? Now, here is a good test. Grab a scale. You don't even have to use a scale. You could use whatever you want. And what I like to do is put the actual knife on the scale, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is I am going to put my 2 fingers down, just like this on the blade, and press. Now, depending on how sharp your knife is and how much you need to sharpen it, just feel the pressure, right? So right here, we're at 5 pounds, we're at 6 pounds. Unless my knife is super dull, I know I don't need that much pressure, right? Usually when I'm sharpening my knife, I'm in between 2 and 4 pounds. Like that is how much pressure I'm putting with just 2 fingers, right? Now, what's the next part is if you don't have that, you're gonna learn, right, with this Sharpie method. And basically what we're gonna do here is feel it out, okay? Put the knife on the dang stone, okay? Start with your tip, okay? This part right here. If you notice from heel to tip, it is not a straight line, okay? And I can't tell you enough, I hate it when I go to kitchens and I see like knives not with their natural shape, but hey, it happens, okay? But so you wanna focus on this curved part, and then this part right here is pretty much straight. You're not going to do too much turning and twisting. So here it goes. Start with the tip. 2 fingers, light pressure, and then press as you go, release as you come back. Press as you go, release as you come back. And sometimes what I do is I kind of just turn the stone a little bit so I have a better angle. And I am doing it kind of fast, but this is a great way to check and see if your angle and your pressure is right. Now, if you look at this, I just put light pressure on that stone and you can see where the edge is. It like literally, I'm not going too high on the knife and my edge is not too steep. You can see the extreme tip and it's a little bit uneven right here, which gives me a good indication that I'm not doing it right. So what we're gonna do is keep going, little baby half moons. And then as I go down the knife, okay, what's very important is keeping this hand very straight, okay? That is the most important part. You don't wanna be doing this number as you're sharpening. Light pressure, push, release as I come back. Get used to this movement, okay? Push, release, push, release, push, release, push, release, push, release. A little bit of water, okay? And as you build confidence with that motion, push, release, push, completely take the knife off the stone to start, okay? I don't want you knife geeks coming after me. So push, release. Then after you build confidence, listen, what you're gonna do is keep the knife on the stone, just don't apply pressure on the return. Okay, does that make sense? So it's gonna sound like this. Okay, so I start at the tip, half moons, press, release, then And you can see this angle is very consistent. And you will know, trust me, so after I do this about 4 or 5 times back, I'm gonna check the Sharpie. And listen, I'm putting about 2 pounds of pressure. I am not going hard at all, right? I'm gonna check my angle. So if you can see here, you can see ever so slightly where the angle is a little bit uneven here, but as I go down the knife, you can see where I'm swiping and it's not correct, right? But you can see I'm barely taking the Sharpie off where it's supposed to be. As I take a closer look, this is a really easy fix for me. So I wanna show you how I stay focused on what I'm doing on the task and continue to sharpen. And I'm actually going to put the angle down a little bit more because I know this knife needs to be thinned a little bit, but I'm gonna show you how to fix this, all right? And this all takes confidence. This takes time. This takes dedication. It takes, you know, I'm not gonna lie, failing so you can succeed. All right, so hopefully you can see this angle. Right at the bottom, you can see where a little bit of the Sharpie has removed, right? And what's really important is, listen, it's never gonna be perfect. So you can say what you want and I'm not good and blah, 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 but guess what? I have been able to keep my knife sharp for years, okay? Razor sharp. It just takes time and practice and effort. Okay, so now, after I am finished sharpening like this, what I like to do is, I am not perfect. So what I like to do is 2 things we're gonna do. One is take the tip to the heel and you're gonna just press ever so gently. And then what this is doing is just straightening out that edge, okay? And the next step is gonna be crucial in your knife sharpening, and this is very important. So this is the next step, just as important as getting the angle, is gonna be the burr. We're gonna check for the burr, okay? So now, the burr, it's very easy. This is very simple. As you start to use your knife, okay, listen, this is the blade, the burr, the metal curls over, okay, on either side. That is when you're using your blade like this, okay? And what's really important is to know where that burr is. So if I'm sharpening on the right side, the burr is gonna be on this side, the side that is facing me, okay? Because we are actively pushing this burr over, okay? And so if you notice how I have my hand gripped on the knife, I am using the finger method, the finger on the top method, okay? I think you have more control than having it like this. Ultimately, I think what a lot of people are scared of when they take my direction on scraping the stone, like, listen, if you scrape on the way back, it's not the end of the world, okay? It's not the end of the world, all right? Trust me, it's fine. Keep it moving. Keep the program going. I'm just gonna check where this Sharpie mark is, and actually I'm really happy with what I'm seeing. I'm just gonna keep going a little bit as I'm talking. All right, and I am not gonna show you what it looks like if I go too thin, but because I don't wanna mess up my knife, but I think what's really important is knowing the angle, getting comfortable. Autofocus, look at that, beautiful. You see where that edge is? You see the edge? All the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. So if you notice right here, from here to here, it is a little bit thinner, I'm sorry, not thinner, but the angle is a little bit steeper than it is right here, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fix that very carefully, just gonna lean the knife a little bit more this way, right? So I know I just need to lean the knife a little bit more this way, very gently, and I'm gonna swipe a couple times on this side, and I know I'll even it out. And look at that, it's perfect. And also I can start to feel the burr on this side, which is amazing. So now that I feel the burr on this side, all the way up from the heel to the tip, this is great. So what I'm gonna do is, again, I'm just gonna really enhance this edge, just 2 swipes, okay? We're not going crazy here, right? Again, like I said, this knife is already sharp. I'm just sharpening it so it's like at its peak. And I think that's what a lot of people, where they mess up, is they wait for the knife to get too dull. All right, now you have 2 options. You can either go left-handed for the other side, your other side, or what I like to do is just turn the knife around and same principles apply, okay? You can put Sharpie on that side if you're more than welcome. It's not a big deal. For me, I'm just gonna move forward because we need to get the show on the road, okay? So again, make sure the stone is lubricated. Now, same technique, okay? And if you look closely here, you'll notice there's not that much water coming on the other side. That is a good sign. If you're scraping the knife too much, there will be water coming up on the knife and you can see that, okay? But again, like I said, here, I'll do it right now. Look, this, it's not gonna crush your soul. It's not gonna hurt the knife just because I say release the pressure, right? So here's the thing. Think about this. I'm doing actually like 3 pounds of pressure here on the way back, 0 pressure on the way here. So it's not sharpening. It's just like gliding across a stone. The key is not to push this way, right? So as you build confidence and continue to sharpen, it will look as easy as this. The most important things, what do we say? The angle, the pressure, and the burr. Angle, pressure, burr. Like, let's go. It's not that hard, and I know that sometimes it's a little bit hard to digest, but this is how you learn, this is how you practice, this is what it takes. If I wasn't given a voiceover right now, this knife would have been already sharpened. It would have took less than 6 minutes. I would have been on with my day. So I think that's another important thing to take in consideration is, after you gain a lot of practice and, depending on how much you use your knife, what's really important is it doesn't take that much to resharpen a knife or, if you keep it sharp, right? I know I'm gonna shoot a couple videos today, so it's not gonna be, oh shoot, I am just totally, bruh, let's go. I am shooting a couple videos today. So I know that my knife just needs to be, where it needs to be. But like, listen, I'm not going into a banquet of, 300 people. So I don't need to sharpen my knife. I'm not gonna have to sharpen my knife to get super sharp to get through a lot of prep. And I think that's really important to know. We're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? Pressure on the way back, release when you come. Pressure on the way back, release when you come up. Pressure, so if you're new, get that angle down, right? Pull, release, and just go ever so gently. Like, take your time, feel it out. No, you have to be one with your knife. Your knife is an extension of your hand. And a lot of people just, they just get too overwhelmed with the amount of information. And that's why I wanted to create this knife course to give you a little bit more confidence in like, listen, it's fine. Don't go out and spend $500 on a damn chef knife if you're brand new in the kitchen. Go to that link that I posted, copy the link, whatever you want to do, and go get that Victorinox knife, that soft steel knife. In the kitchen we call them beaters, and I think this is a great knife to learn on. Now that the burr has been pushed to the other side, I can definitely feel it. What I want to do is I want to, from heel to tip, straighten it out, right? Because nobody's perfect, right? So this, for me, I just realized has really helped me keep a really clean edge. It's not necessary, but I highly recommend it. So heel to tip, same angle. And again, I am sharpening right now on the 1000. That's what I primarily use the most of the time. And I think what's really important is do the paper test, right? Do the test on the paper, see how sharp the knife is. And I don't like wasting paper. I'm in California, everybody freaks out. But do the test. Yeah, this knife is like, I mean, we ain't even playing, look at this. Like, I mean, that wasn't a good representation, but hold on. Okay, boom, look at that. Damn. And actually, you know what's funny is you can tell, okay, so as you notice, that knife it's very sharp, it's cutting paper, but you can see it's rigid. So it's almost pulling instead of slicing through, right? And that's okay. Look, I'm gonna show you exactly how we're gonna fix that because this is actually a great transition into the polishing stone. And what that is I'm actually gonna go for the 3000 here. And the polishing stone is after your knife is pretty sharp, this is when you wanna take it to the next level. Now, I could totally finish this stone on the 1000 grit or the medium grit and move on with my life. But for me, I really, really like using the polishing stones because it's just much more gentle on your knife, and you get, I would argue that you get a more clean cut for delicate like fruits, herbs, vegetables. Now, here's the thing. With Japanese steel, it's very different in the sense, like, I highly don't recommend like cutting things like, you can, but like butternut squash, anything that's frozen, these things, I just haven't had a really good experience with knives like this, that the metal is very strong. But just to give you an example, like if I were to use this knife, which I have before, to cut butternut squash, I would be very careful on cutting straight down, my peoples. And the reason is because you were able to cut straight through, but man, if you twist, or if you turn, or if you make a wrong move, or if the butternut squash rolls, this knife will chip way easier than a German steel knife. So that's another thing to take in consideration. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of that, but I'm gonna polish this knife. So same technique, okay? So very gentle, back and forth, light pressure for me for this knife when I'm polishing. So about 2 pounds, make sure the angle is on point, okay? A lot of people live and die by the slurry, so to say, that is on this stone. And I don't know, man, I never really got into that, but a lot of people think it helps with the sharpening. I don't know the history behind that or the reasoning behind it. I just know somebody was talking about it on my knife sharpening YouTube or TikTok or something like that. But anyway, and as you can see, I'm moving kind of fast, only because you have a little bit more give with the polished stone. It's not gonna take that much metal off the knife. This is also a good way to practice, right? So when your knife is still sharp, just polish it up a little bit. Use the Sharpie method, I highly recommend that. Like you can tell by the way I'm sharpening that it sounds like music to your ears, right? Now, some people will argue against the heel to tip method like this, but I'll be honest and I'll tell you exactly where I saw it. Bob Kramer, the Kramer method of sharpening, and I'll get into that, and that's also a good way to sharpen. So my knife has been sharpened, it's been polished, and now we're gonna finish it on a strop block. Now, I got this strop block from this place right here. It's called Knives Plus. As a chef in a restaurant, I highly advise against my cooks to resort to a honing steel. And the reason is out of my 19 years of being a cook and a chef, is a lot of people they use the honing steel to sharpen their knife or compensate for a dull knife. And so if I'm leading a kitchen, I will freaking ban them. And I'm like, no, do not use a honing steel. Now, am I a Nazi and say, no, you can't absolutely use it? Yeah, of course. Like, especially with the butcher, if they're going through bones or whatever, they need to bring their edge back. But I highly advise against it. I use a strop block. I barely use a honing steel. That's not to say that they're bad. That's not to say that they're bad if they're used correctly. But a lot of people compensate to sharpen. They think they're sharpening their knife. No, you're not. A honing steel is exactly that. It's to hone your knife. When the burr is rolled over a little bit, if you cut something hard, it's good to bring it back real quick. But I would argue that it's much better to pull out your strop block or pull out a stone. And you will actually see where my burr was pushed over on this strop block, and I actually caught the compound that was on here. And yeah, and it's true. But anyway, I do this with the strop block. I don't do the back and forth. I go from tip to heel, and as you can see, a little bit of the metal is coming off the knife, but nothing crazy. And then same thing back this way. I actually put my finger on the strop block and just come back ever so gently. Watch your fingers, hold it, make sure nothing bad happens. Super easy, okay? Do this a couple times, and I'm telling you, man, we got a sharp knife. I should have done the paper test before, I'm sorry, but anyway, look, you see that? You see how the knife just slices right through, light effort, and I already crumpled up the other paper, but that's the difference between sharpening and then going to the honing. Then this is just a little bit of a bonus tip. Okay, if all of that is too confusing for you, then what I recommend is start off like this, okay? Now this is the Bob Kramer method, how he does it. And he'll sit with the knife like this and basically do long, even strokes like this. Kind of the same thing that I was doing when I'm just fixing my edge, but he does it for real. And listen, there's nothing wrong with sharpening this way, right? Like if you're too intimidated by the way I just showed you previously, then this is good. This might be good for you. Now, I will argue that this method is, it kind of takes a lot of metal off the knife. That's what I realized, but I'm keeping the same pressure. I'm making a little half moon from tip to heel. A lot of people sharpen this way. I noticed that, you know, what ends up happening is over time, the knife actually grinds down even more. And what's really important to me is the longevity of my knives. So that's why I like to sharpen the other way. But, you know, it's all about the pressure, the angle, and the burr. Whichever way you decide, there's also another way you can hit it. You can hit it this way too. And I'm gonna show you this method. And this is how I learned in culinary school. But honestly, I don't like this way because, you know, you're actually prone to taking a lot more metal off of the knife. Okay, I'll show you my hip swivel. So let me get that into focus real quick. Okay, watch my hips here. Watch my hips here. Okay, watch my hips here. So basically here I am, heel to tip, right? So keep your elbows tucked in, and this is how you keep the proper angle and the proper pressure. So know where your angle is, go to your phone, know where your angle is, and watch this, from heel to tip. And then listen, swing your hips the same way, okay? Same thing on this side. And this is how I learned in culinary school, okay? And there's nothing wrong with this way, okay? It's actually very easy. But the thing I realize, opposed to the Bob Kramer way or the classic oilstone way, like this, from heel to tip, is you end up taking more metal off of the knife, and you always get this curved blade, right? It's very difficult to sharpen a knife that's completely straight. It's very difficult to sharpen a paring knife that has a hook, or a beak, I should say. It's very difficult to sharpen a slicer, right? And then what also ends up happening is this blade ends up becoming super flat, right? So if you don't sharpen it with that curve, then you end up having problems later down the road. That's why if you go into like professional kitchens, or you see some butchers that have knives that turn into jail shanks, is what I call them, it's because of that sharpening method, okay? Or the method, the Bob Kramer method, like this, back and forth. Okay, so hey, listen, this course is completely free for you, okay? It's very straight to the point, okay? I don't have a production crew to edit and put all the graphics, so don't at me, okay? But this is a free course. I think everybody should have this information. But this is also gonna be continued in depth. So if you are new culinarian, or if you're a home cook, or you wanna just get better, or you wanna have some skill in cooking so you can show off with your friends, then listen. My program is for you, okay? I'm gonna be building this out. I think it's very important. I think each day, every day, I'm gonna put more and more effort into the subscription-based model, because that way you have skin in the game and I also have skin in the game, okay? And it completely fulfills my heart to be able to help young culinarians and home cooks and chefs alike to become better cooks. So if you love this video, please hit me back in the email, right? Let's start this journey. You know, I think the biggest thing is like, I am offering the lowest possible price. But if you lock it in now, you'll be grandfathered into that original price, because you know it's gonna go up over time. That's how any business is run. So keep in mind, 6 months from now, if you're still signed up, then you're still gonna pay the $9.99, right? Even if it's increased to 15 or 20. So with that being said, I also wanna leave you with some information where if you're really into knife sharpening, I'm gonna show you where my sources came from. And my #1 source is John Broida in Los Angeles at Japanese Knife Imports, okay? Everybody else I love too. There's a couple local people here in San Francisco. There's a couple of people in Canada that I really enjoy watching. On YouTube, I really enjoy Burrfection's content. I will, again, leave that information for you. I think it's really important. If you wanna get into the nitty-gritty of knife sharpening, these are my 2 suggestions. Now, here's the thing. Keep in mind, I am a professional chef. I am not a knife geek anymore, but I do have to use a knife as a tool. So I am not gonna go into in-depth just like they do, but I will teach you how to sharpen your knife, and I feel comfortable doing that. But I leave everything to the experts. So I think these 2 are really good in their field. Of course, John Broida being on a professional level, and I think Burrfection is on YouTube is a little bit more digestible for home cooks and you know, sharpening enthusiasts. And I think that's important, because you can do, the world is your oyster. It really depends on your situation, just like I said in the beginning, of how you wanna go about it, which way you wanna sharpen, what works best for you in your situation. You know, there's a lot of variables. So take that in consideration. I hope this helps, and sign up for my damn program. Let's go.